Well, sticking with this story, and in the past few minutes, the Commons Speaker has allowed a vote on Labour's amendments to the SNP-led motion for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Keir Starmer had attempted to stave off a revolt for the first time, backing a permanent end to fighting in the region, but only on the condition that both Israel and Hamas lay down their arms.
But while the Labour leader will be breathing a sigh of relief, shouts of shame were heard in the chamber after the Speaker announced his decision. Joining us now is former Labour advisor John McTernan. Thanks for coming on board, John. Your thoughts on this? Keir Starmer, I guess, has sort of won the day. But on a general basis, don't you think all these politicians, this debating society in the House of Commons, all shouting at each other, debating or having rows, squabbling about whether to use the word immediate or now, whether or not to use the word ceasefire or pause, don't you think this demeans them?
So I don't think it demeans them. I think some of the silly politicking about the words in the motion, the SNP tried to make a motion that Labour definitely couldn't support. The government tried to create an amendment that the Labour Party would be embarrassed to support. But the fact that the Prince has spoken on this speaks to something really important, I think, and is why I believe the House of Commons should be debating this and should debate all the views. It's that the slaughter in Palestine, the slaughter in Gaza has gone so far that the majority of people in the country, the vast majority of people in the country, want the killing to stop. And that is a deeply, deeply human reaction to the scenes of tragedies and the numbers, which are probably going to rise over 30,000 dead today, and a large proportion of them women and children. And I think that's why the important thing, I think, is for Parliament, the House of Commons, to speak for the country. If an amended resolution is passed tonight, it will align the UK, the Parliament, all the parties, all the MPs in it, with the United States and President Biden.
And do you think it'll make a blind bit of difference?
And that's important.
Do you think it will make a blind bit of difference to Netanyahu's thinking?
To be honest, all democracies respond to public opinion in their own countries and internationally. President Putin doesn't, he's a dictator, but the war cabinet that Benjamin Netanyahu sits on top of in Israel, they're very well aware of what international opinion is. That's now going to be expressed at the UN Security Council. And the fact is, there is no plan for anything in Israel at the moment, apart from further military action. We know through experience, ceasefires have happened, and they have actually not just saved lives and brought in humanitarian aid, they've led to the release of hostages. And that work is really hard, that work is really grueling, but it's done through discussions between intermediaries. And I think the international community assisted in the creation of the ceasefire that got the hostages released. You know, they were behind the scenes negotiations. That is what the hope of the families in Israel must rest in. And behind the scenes and maybe in front of scenes negotiations are what we all have to hope for, because lasting peace and a lasting end to a threat to Israelis and to Palestinian men, women and children can only come through peace. We learned that the hard way in the UK through the Northern Ireland peace process. All peace involves compromises. All peace starts with talks, and all talks start with a ceasefire and a humanitarian priority rather than the priority of continuing a conflict. And I think for whatever, all the shouts and the screams in the House of Commons, just recently, 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago, whatever it was, there is a seriousness about the debate because the topic is serious, and the country deserves to hear a serious debate about a serious issue. And yes, we are in one sense powerless, but there's many things that we take really strong personal and moral positions on that we cannot directly affect. And that's because as humans, we actually feel we have to model behaviors and say things and have values. And so, yes, I think we may see at the end of this, the best thing possible, the House of Commons agreeing on some words that actually put us together with other nations across the world.
Now, I'm just going to come back to you, Peter, because my understanding is talking about the House of Commons agreeing on something. What they might agree on, perhaps, is this intervention by Sir Lindsay Hall to break with convention and allow both the Conservatives and the Labour amendments to be debated and voted on, as well as the SNP motion.
Yes,
What's just happened?
This has caused a huge amount of consternation, and actually a select committee chairman, William Ragg, he's a backbencher for the Conservative Party. He is chairman of the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee. He has tabled a motion already in the last few minutes calling for a motion of no confidence in the Speaker. I don't think this will go anywhere. I don't think it's that significant necessarily in terms of what might happen, but it is significant in the fact that you have a leading Conservative politician being happy to put on the record that he is not happy with the conduct of the Speaker, who's meant to be independent, not always popular, of course, but being admonished at least by one MP, if not others, who can sign this motion as well.
Yeah, well, and so someone else falling victim to the Gaza debates. John, I'm going to come back to you if you don't mind. Talking about how the public are very impassioned about this, it does make me remember other wars and conflicts in the Middle East where we haven't seen the long snaking protests and the sort of vocal opposition to something that a particular country is doing to another country. And what I'd like to ask you, sort of segueing into a slightly different topic here, is this is becoming a huge powder keg issue. And I'd say especially for the Labour Party, who tend to be the subject of the ire of organisations such as Muslim Votes, who say they're going to stand in up to 90 constituencies to try and unseat Labour politicians who don't support immediate ceasefires. And also because by and large, not always necessarily, but by and large, the majority of constituencies with a big ethnic minority demography tends to end up being held by Labour. How concerning is this? If this situation goes on and continues to be such a volatile topic, how concerning is this for the Labour Party during a general election year?
I don't think this is an electoral issue. I think this is a national issue, a moral issue, an issue about what people feel about conflict. I think that over the last few decades, certainly from the time of the Iraq War and possibly before that, there's actually been a lack of public support for war. And we can think what we like about that. I personally think there are times when there should be military intervention to support democracies, to support what we're doing in Ukraine. And I think that there is an issue that when you have a multi-ethnic, multiracial population, which the UK has, and is one of the great strengths of our country, that you have to listen to every part of the country. You can't simply say, I'm sorry, you're a minority. You can't say to Jewish people, your voice is irrelevant, there's hardly any of you. You can't say to Muslims, you're a minority. You can't say to other brown people, you don't have the right to have a voice. We're not listening to your expressions of dreams and hopes and anger and rage at times from the experience of the global South. We have to have a politics that can represent, can mediate, and can engage with this. And to say that there's a force in the country that's really opposed to this war, that energy has to be channeled. Because if you don't channel it into your politics is in danger of tearing apart. So I don't see this as a party political issue. I see this as a representational issue, that we do have to find ways that the multiplicity of voices that we have and opinions can be fairly represented. That's why, again, come back to today, I do think that the speakers come up with a new precedent. And I think is right. In unprecedented times, you do unprecedented things. And I think allowing those voices to come. So I would never see this as an electoral position, because I think it would be wrong for the Labour Party to either.
All right, John. Good to talk to you.
Very philosophically put, actually.
Good to talk to you, John. Always a pleasure.